All right. What is going on, guys? It has been a while. I actually scheduled this live. I sent the graphic out yesterday, and man, I got to tell you, I did a live a few days ago, and it was kind of impromptu. Had a lot of different stuff on my mind, but look, I've got something really special today for everybody on here, and I'm super excited. So, in just a minute here. My buddy Jessie is going to jump on here. So, just a little backstory. Jessie and I met through social media. He's a loving father, a Christian. He's a staff sergeant in the United States Army. And man, we connected on Instagram, and him and I have been going back and forth for the last bunch of months, trying to get connected. So if you don't follow him, you'll get a chance to follow him here. You have to check him out. Freckled faced runner, 23 is his handle here on Instagram. So I'm going to wait just a second here, let everybody get situated. Then I'm going to jump on here. So it's really cool. I get the opportunity once in a while to have some of my buddies on here. And while I've never met Jessie, in person, we've connected a lot over the last year or so on social media. And I'm really excited to have him on here. It's a really honor to bring a young man of faith on here, a young man on the path, getting after it, and a fellow Christian and a fellow NCO. So, hey, I'm going to bring him on here, guys. Let's see if Jessie is ready to roll here. Jessie. Hey,
Can y'all hear
Jessie,
me?
what? Yeah, what's up, man? Hey, yeah, you sound good, man. You sound good.
Awesome.
Yeah, let me turn my sound up a little bit here just to make sure I'm all the way up. I can tell you have an iPhone,
I
man.
love it. iPhones all the way, baby. All
No,
the way.
no, 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 no. Anyway, all right, man, we're gonna have to cut this short. Hey, but anyway, man, I was kind of giving a little bit of intro. I'll finish that since I got you on here. I'll say nothing but great things about you, and then
Hey,
we'll get to it, man.
hopefully all
But
of them
hey, I'm
are true.
super. What's that?
So hopefully all of them are true.
Well, I mean, we'll get to that. We'll see. Hopefully I can nail it. But hey, first and foremost, man, I want to say thanks for the opportunity. I know you and I have been playing a little bit of social media tag, to try to get this coordinated. But the important thing is we connected on social media because we're very like minded. Obviously,
Yeah.
we're both in the military. We're both non-commissioned officers. But our page is kind of intersected because I know you're into fitness. You're a man of faith. You're married, loving father or a loving husband, and so yeah, that's basically what I was telling everybody. So I'd like you to just kind of like tell us why you're here, man. Give us a little intro and just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into it, man. Like we talked earlier, it's nothing scripted. We're just gonna have a conversation and see where it leads, man. So I'd love for you to give everybody on here an opportunity to have your little intro and get to know you a little bit more.
Man, sounds good. So, hey guys, my name is Jesse. I'm from the great state of Mississippi. If you don't know where that is, that's the landmass. We get called that a lot. It's just kind of what we deal with. I've been in the military now 15 years. Of that time, I spent 11 years as a military policeman, and in the past 4 years, I've been in logistics. Like Grant was saying, me and my wife just celebrated our 4-year marriage anniversary. Fun fact, we actually got married the day quarantine started in 2020, St. Patrick's Day. So got luck of the draw there. I can't ever forget that day. Uh, we just celebrated a year in our first house. We've got a dog that might as well be our child. And yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people who follow me on here see me for my running and my weightlifting and all that kind of stuff. That's what I'm passionate about. Uh, I love just interacting with people, and ultimately, my goal is just to show people that look, I'm nobody special. I'm a freckle faced guy from Mississippi, lived here my whole life. If I can get out there and make something of myself, anybody can. So I know some more will probably pop up as we go along, but man, that's short, sweet, to the point.
Yeah, I like it, man. I like it. I know we talked earlier, and you were joking and saying that your wife would tell everybody that you talk a lot.
Yes.
And you've been on a bunch of my lives. You've seen a bunch of my videos, man. And Shayna jumped on here too. My wife, my family's on here too. They always support me, man. So mom and dad, Jason, Karen, I love you guys. Shayna, thank you so much. I always
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
guys.
Um, Yeah, and here's the thing, man. I just did a podcast recently, and it's going to get released, I think, on Wednesday. Really excited about it. But one of the things that we talked about, two things rather, that I want to make sure that we're good with on this one is this, man. Number one, you're super special, bro.
Oh yeah,
Everything that you've been through, we need to hear. So don't say I'm just a regular guy. You may think that way if you compare yourself to other people, but I can guarantee there's something in Jesse's story, Jesse's past, or whatever that will resonate with someone else, man. So, like, that's why you're on here, and that's why I appreciate you being here. That's number one. Number two, I finally embraced that I'm a soft skills expert, right? I have some hard skills. I do cool stuff in the military. I've got a crazy path with guns and jujitsu and all these other things, but my God-given ability that I'm really trying to pour into now is building relationships, communicating with one another. So
yes, sir.
don't ever sell yourself short on the number of words that you use, brother. All right. Especially with me, literally nobody can out-talk me, man. So you're going to be good to go right off the
Sounds
bat.
good.
Um, but hey, you talked a little bit about your running, and I want to make sure that we talk about that because you and I connected. I know you try all these different shoes all the time.
Oh
You
yeah,
did the Hattiesburg half. You're getting after it. You share a lot of your stuff with me, man, which I'm really appreciative of. I love seeing you getting out there and getting after it. But here's what I'd like to know, man, because you and I have never got to connect on this level. So what's going on? What's going on in Jesse's brain when you're setting a goal for yourself, when you're setting those steps to get after it, and then when it comes time for race day or run day, man? Like, to walk me through that, not just how you lace your shoes up, right? What's your mindset for why you're doing it and what you hope to get out of it?
awesome. So I'm gonna paint a little picture here for us. I'll say that's something I like to do is I like to paint pictures for people on my mindset because again, everybody thinks different, and this is the way. So I started very early on. My mother's side of the family would always joke with me. I was that type of person that when I was learning how to rollerblade, I would be out there for days on end with God knows how many scraped elbows because I was the type of person if I'm trying something, I'm gonna get it. May not be the best, but I'm going to get after it and try to learn it. And that actually transitioned for me, which was my biggest passion for a long time and still is martial arts. I started martial arts when I was 11, primarily Taekwondo. Did that for a few years. Moved in with my dad when I was 13, and that passion still came about. I mean, I was that one guy that would stay after class doing the basics and the fundamentals over and over and over, and that led into just having that drive and passion to just try new things. I mean, that ultimately is why I joined the military. Is I wanted to be getting into the military was something at first I've never considered, but as I was going through high school, I realized that was my shot. Um, my dad is a grunt in the lamest way to say the word. That man's worked in granite fabrication since before I was born, and it really stuck with me when I was 16. He looked at me and he said, "I better never see you pick up a piece of granite." And I was like, "Oh, yes, sir, I got you." And so all that to say is, as I became an adult, I got through my first deployment, and I found martial arts again, and it was my passion. I worked at a Nissan manufacturing facility here in Mississippi, creating the Ultimas, and the guys on the line used to joke at me because I'd be in my stances making machinery because I feel like almost borderline, and back then I would say it was borderline obsession. It was something if I became passionate about it, that's who I was. And up until the point where, up until 2020, I was actually a manager of a martial arts academy. Did it full time. Actually got my fourth degree black belt in Taekwondo, and then COVID happened, and got married, and realized that I wanted to be able to take care of my wife like I'm supposed to. That's something that I'm really passionate about, is being able to take care of my wife, my family, those around me. And so I was like, hey, look, I need to step away, stay in the military. And I say I give it maybe a year, excuse me, of not really having those types of goals. Because I mean, when I was in martial arts, it was every 4 months I was training for this next level. At least 3 times a year, I was prepping for a major tournament. And so I always had those stepping stones and those cycles, what we called it, that I was training and ramping up, and then I come down for a little bit, and get back to it. And that year of not really having anything, man, I could tell like just my mental health, my physical health just kind of deteriorated. And so I actually came across a lot of people in here may have known Nick Bear and BPN, and came across this podcast, kind of what he was talking about, what he was for. I was like, man, let me give this weightlifting and running a try. I mean, yeah, like I said, I've been in the military 15 years, so I've had to run, but I know with the old Army physical fitness test, you didn't have to really run all the time to pass it. So I know for my unit, we always did the PT test in like October, November. So I was one of those, and I'll rat myself out. I was one of those soldiers. I didn't run from January to August. Into August to October, November, man, I'd be hitting the pavement just so I could pass it. And it's just that's who I was. I was never a runner. I've always been a heavier set guy. I'm very broad. I got that honestly from both sides of my family. But I was like, man, let me give this a try. Let me get into this hybrid lifestyle of weightlifting and running. And man, it took off. Um, Ultimately, I mean, running is definitely more of my passion. I do weightlift though, and I see the benefits that it brings from lifting heavy into running faster. And uh, something I learned, especially when me and my wife first got kind of started the marriage counseling and kind of doing internal stuff and internal thoughts on myself, I realized, like I said earlier, when I was younger, it was obsessive. It was destructive obsession. And so now I've tried to bring that into more positive construction. Um, Ultimately, when I run, though, man, it's just, I'm able to just relax. Um, at first, it was selfish to be leaner, to be faster, to be that next guy on social media, getting their new PR and getting that medal and all that kind of stuff. But man, now, especially now that me and my wife are back into our faith really heavily, it's just my time really to connect with God. I know me and her joke all the time. Up until about 2 years ago, I was not a podcast guy. I wasn't people talking to me when I'm doing stuff. And now I probably 80% of my time is spent listening to podcasts or sermons or people reading the Bible. I mean, that's just trying to grow into my faith and use that ultimately to honor Him. And by doing that, honor myself. And plus, it's
Yeah,
fun. I like doing things that make me feel like crap sometimes because it makes me remind myself that I'm alive.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think those of us that are on here in the military and a bunch of our military brethren and sisters, there's a lot of comfort sometimes in doing those things, right? Yeah, we don't
Yeah.
like the way it feels maybe at the time physically or mentally, but we all know that once we get through it, we've done it enough or we've been in those situations where it allows us to grow. We get through it together. Mandatory fun day. We love that guy.
Oh
He
yeah.
talks about it all the time,
Yeah.
right? He talks about trauma bonding. He kind of does a satirical way of doing it, but there is something to be said about shared hardships with one another, right? And the military, we have that a lot of times. We have that shared hardship and those traumas together. But man, Jesse, I want to ask you this, man. You said something to me that sparked another question. So I'm going to
Go
ask you a
ahead.
question here. Um, and I identify with it because you were talking about you ran and the way you kind of crafted your APFT and now ACFT where you weren't training and all that. Um, I'm getting this sense, man. I'm getting this sense, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm getting a sense that when you kind of were, going through the martial arts phase and then into this, right? Did you find that fitness and martial arts, were you starting to identify with these things as part of your identity as you went forward? Like maybe you weren't like exactly where you thought you wanted to be, but you could always lean towards that, and you can identify as somebody in Taekwondo achieving the next level, or someone to be sought after because of their um, skills and abilities in that mindset. Did you feel yourself going into that kind of that channel?
So if you would have asked me that during that Taekwondo phase, I probably would have tried to fight you. Let's just be real. But now that I'm a little bit older, a little bit wiser, yes, 100%. My wife jokes with me when we first got together. I mean, you didn't catch me outside without something Tiger Rock or Taekwondo related. I mean, it's just that's who I was. And uh, one, it was mainly me. That's just kind of with what I dealt with in childhood and kind of things I went through with my family, like I never really fit in with them. And when I got to martial arts, I fit. I mean, I wasn't the greatest, but I got a bag full of medals that said I was pretty decent. And my focus was extreme martial arts. I mean, I used to get joked at all the time because I was the 6 foot tall, 200 pound, weird looking white guy that could do backflips without the best of them. Now, that's probably why my back's messed up now, but we'll leave that for another topic. But
That's a whole separate episode.
but yeah, I mean that I did ultimately. I mean that's who I was, and part of it was the scheduling of it. I mean I did this for 5.5 years, 6 days a week, and it never shut off up here. And it actually took sitting with my wife right after we got married, and even when we were together, it kind of really came out that that's all I was. I mean that's all I thought about. That's all I talked about, and it was like, oh, wow, really, is it that bad? And taking that moment to kind of disconnect. And that's where, again, that growth happens. You know, we talk about growth and the uncomfortability. I mean, that's what I needed. And I still struggle with it, especially with the running and weightlifting and all that. I know my wife gets tired of me. I know when I first got into running, I started to do that. And she'd be like, dude, I don't care that you're running this new route every single day. I don't care that you're hitting these splits every single day. I enjoy it. I appreciate it. But what else can you talk about? And it's like, oh, there's other stuff to talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah, other things.
But to say that I'm 100% through that, I want to lie to you. I mean, I still have days, especially uh, a while back, but I know now I feel like it's gotten better, especially now that I've just been able to start back running since my half. I ended up getting an ingrown toenail, and like a guy, I pushed through it for a week and a half, through a weapons qual weekend, and finally went and got it cut out. And it was now that I'm running again, it's like, okay, how was I during that time? Was I down? Yeah. Was I down more than what I normally would be? No. I mean, I was still good. I was able to communicate. So I see growth, but that is something that I definitely feel myself constantly being self-aware of. Like, hey man, talk about something else. Like, go do something. And I'm that type of person. Like, I've got to figure out ways to disconnect, but also, like we've talked about, use what I enjoy as a platform for others. And I mean, just like you talk about living your legacy. I mean, that's just how I talk and communicate with others isn't about me. It needs to be about others and how do I influence them and bring them to a whole better version of themselves that's just waiting right there.
Yeah. I mean that's great, man. I mean you nailed it kind of right on the head, right? Like we end up crossing paths, probably because a lot of the fitness stuff and obviously the military, right? Um, but I did a live a bunch of months ago, maybe last year, with a lady named Snej V. I don't know if you've seen her on there. Check her out. She's pretty
I might
cool.
need to.
Yeah, but basically what she talks about, and I 100% agree with, is when you go to the gym or you're doing something fitness related, a lot of times you go into these situations with what you can take out of your brain, right? Like how you can heal your brain, which a lot of people do, and then how you can build up your body. You talked about how when you're doing your runs or martial arts, you're finding ways to connect to be better. And there's a ton of people in this space that use these other things, whether it's fitness, whatever the fitness world has to offer them, whether it's running, tries, ultras, weightlifting, whatever the case may be. And I don't know if you've heard some of the versions I've done on some of the videos I've done on here before. I know for me personally, I found sometimes that, I would share these things with my wife and my family and everybody else. But what I started to find, and I'll ask you this at the end, what I started to find is I would do things to a fault, meaning that I would isolate myself in these other categories so much that I wasn't able to fully embrace what was going on. But I didn't hide it per se, and I do find a lot of growth when I'm working out and when I'm doing these things because it gives me a chance to kind of focus on that. What I found for me is that sometimes I was going through the workouts and not really maximizing that time to really work on myself. Sure, it's great for my body physically and all that, but was I getting a lot out of it mentally?
Yeah.
I can tell from my vantage point, from when I started following you until now, and kudos to you for this, brother. I could even tell in your videos that early on when you were posting these things till now, bro, I've seen a huge amount of growth.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can tell that that's coming off, man, but kudos to you because I run. I have a lot of fitness things that I do. I know when I'm in the game. I know when I'm, you know, in it for the long run. And then I know when I'm not at my best, right? And I've been able to see a lot of like mental and 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 mindset growth just in your videos, man. Can you tell me about how that's happened? Is it something that you consciously work on? Is it something that you can speak out and say like, hey, this helped me turn the corner? And when I was running, I thought about my soldiers and I wanted to do better. Like, what? Walk me through like what's propelled you in the last year from what I've seen, from where you started to where you're at now, man.
Man, yeah. So for me, it ultimately comes down to two things. One, getting back into my faith heavily. I mean, me and my wife, we started going to church together when we first got together, but I mean, we were the typical young people. We were at the club on Saturday, rolling into Sunday hungover. I mean, that's who we were. And got convicted, got right, but then we had a falling out with our old church, kind of stepped out. It took a little while for us to find a new home in a church, but as we found a new home and just kind of really dug deeper into our faith, I started to realize it's not about me. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not. It's about how do I glorify Him? How do I bring others closer to Him? And what can I do to live a longer life serving Him? I mean, I'm the type of person, I mean, yeah, you don't work out, you don't eat right, all that kind of stuff, and you talk about God every day. That's great. I'm the same way, but I may live a little bit longer. And I want to be able to live as long as I can, honoring Him with my life as a husband, as a dog dad, as a soldier, as just a friend. And to me, that really helped kind of switch my mindset on why I run. I mean, I run for me. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's the end of the day, a part of it, but I run for my wife so that I live longer and I'm healthier so I can be here longer for her. I run to honor God with the gift of life. I'll wake up every day thankful that He gave me another day because I know many people don't get that opportunity or they have a day they wake up to something that's not in their power and control. So definitely faith, definitely one of the bigger ones. But then I actually got the opportunity back in November to go through Master Resiliency School for the Army. And by far in my 15 years, that was the toughest but most rewarding Army school that I've ever been to.
Mm-hmm.
One, maybe because it was taught by a civilian. We'll leave that at that. I don't know. But just the tools and the ideas behind resiliency, and just one of the ones that I still use religiously since that day is hunt the good stuff and realizing how wrong, and it may be unintentional, somehow some people still use that wrong and breaking it down. I'm very much the type of person that, hey, you got to break it down for me. Keep it simple, stupid, break it down Barney style. And that one stuck with me because I like hunting that good stuff and finding those three things each day. It's going to be different for every person every single day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are some days when my best thing that happened is I made it through work without losing my mind. If there's anybody on here that's ever been through logistics, you feel like that 97% of the time. Like, but I didn't lose my crap today at work. But then there's some days, man, just waking up, I woke up with energy. I had a great run listening to this great podcast. I mean, I hit a PR today. But just finding those ways to focus on trying to find the good so you get out of that negativity and that confirmation bias of always believing that, oh, they're out to get me. And I know it's going to be bad today, so I know it's going to be bad tomorrow. No. And I take that really stuck with me because I live that. most of my teenage years and most of my young adult years, I lived that way. It's always been this way, so might as well stay that way. And so, really using those skills of resiliency and realizing that, man, life is meant to be hard. Like at the end of the day, and if I talk with my hands too much, everybody watching, y'all have to deal with it. That's how I am. I'm very vocal and movement with my hands. But life is tough, period. I mean, I almost lost my dad last year. And that guy, man, that's my hero. Like, you can ask my wife, she jokes with us because her and her mom talk like once or twice a week for like 20 minutes a time. Me and my dad talk once a week, no longer than 3 minutes. But when I tell you we can talk for 3 minutes and we're caught up, that's just how we are. My dad might as well be one of my best friends. And he ended up having his gallbladder go septic and almost killed him. And sitting in the hospital room with him last year and just kind of seeing how bad he went down made me realize that, man, you're not promised every day. So get up, make the most out of it, spend time with the people that mean the most to you, that give you the most fulfillment and enjoyment and hope and love, and just live each day. So, I mean, those two things, though, really is what's helped me kind of transform this past year, helping me through dark spots, through low spots, through high spots. Because, again, you get that dopamine release, you get that excitement of either going good, you want to stay there. Well, you're not going to always stay there. You got to have those peaks and valleys.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You said a lot of great things, man. I want to touch on a couple of that. I would agree. I too didn't go to the MRT one. I went to the updated one, the Holistic Health and Fitness Integrator
Yeah.
course in June. And I will tell you, that's where I had an aha moment, epiphany moment. And what you talked about a little bit after that was the confirmation bias and negativity bias. June of last year is when I realized this nasty cycle that I had been caught in. Between negativity bias, confirmation bias, feeling insecure, feeling that I was never going to be good enough, feeling that I was never going to be the strongest, all these feelings of inadequacy,
Yeah.
all these different things. And I literally woke up in the middle of the night and had like this aha moment. And what it led to was what you talked about, hunting the good stuff. I've kind of distilled down for me in my life, and I'm sure in yours as well, is finding that gratitude.
Yeah.
And you touched on it when you talked about, hey, tomorrow's not promised. We got to live each day the same way. For my story, what I found is that I was definitely grateful for my wife, my family, my children, so many things, but I had a really, really poor way of showing it. I had a poor way of pouring into that with other people, because that negativity bias was, although I'm outwardly positive, I could always find that negativity. And again, I want to do a shameless plug. You said you like to listen to podcasts, and I think my boy George jumped on here. I'm going to be the episode is going to be coming out, I think, Wednesday. It's called the Present Fathers Podcast, man. It's going to be awesome. If you want to know a little bit more about Grant in an awesome way, I share a lot of my story and a huge moment, an epiphany moment that my dad and I had on Christmas. So anyway, check him out, George Hayworth and his team, Present Fathers Podcast. It's a really good one. Shameless plug, but what we talked about on there was that, each day is not promised, and we're doing our best to live in the moment. And what I found was that gratitude was missing. And the last point that you said, that I think you nailed right on the head, man. Like, you're so much farther along in your growth mindset journey than I ever was at your age, man. So I'm glad to see you on this path, man. But Arthur Brooks and Oprah Winfrey co-authored a book called Build the Life You Want, and they talk about finding happiness and finding joy, but not trying to eradicate negativity and not trying to eradicate all these things out of your life. Because like you said, bad things are going to happen. Peaks and valleys are just inevitable in life, right? It's putting that distance between the stimulus and response that we all are not good at, myself included. I've gotten better at it, like you
Yeah.
said about your crappy day dealing with logisticians. But every time we do these things, and every time we're in community with one another, and every time you go on long runs, I imagine these are things that you're thinking
Yeah.
about, right? You're thinking about, what can I do better? So, as we say in the Army, right, what's the so what for you right now when it comes to your running, your walk with faith, your fitness journey? Like when you're out on a really tough run and you're going through all these things in your head about what Jessie needs to do and how you need to show up for those close personal relationships, what's that moment that you look for when you finally are able to tell yourself, you know, you got this, Jessie. Like God has designed you to be you, and you're the only one uniquely qualified to be you. So when you get done with that run and you've had one of those moments, man, what's the next thing that you do?
Um, so I mean, for something like that, I'm shamelessly. I mean, I've got a notebook here with me right now as well. I mean, I'm that type of person. I'm always writing sticky notes. I mean, I think that's something military related. It's got to be because everybody I know has got
Well,
about 13 different types of
that
notebooks.
you weren't gonna know this, but that was an inspectable item, bro. I was gonna ask you
Look,
for
hey,
your
I've
dog
got
tags and your notebook.
it. But I like to write and journal, and that's something not many people know about this about me. But when I was younger and as a younger kid, kind of tweenish years, I used to actually write poetry a lot. I actually did have a poem published. Lord knows I couldn't find the book it was published in. I'd really had to do some searching, but I like to write and I like to make videos of myself saying these things that I'm this is aha moments. Um, but ultimately, I try to just be thankful. I mean, because not every run, not every lift, not every time that I push myself, I have those. And I mean, I don't think you're supposed to either. I mean, sometimes some days you got to go through the motions. I mean, I'm the world's worst on sometimes my body ain't there. I'm just going through the motions. But when I do have those moments of like, oh, that's what I need to be doing, or man, I'm thankful for this, or man, look, that's what I've got to hit on next in my growth and my journey. One, I try to be thankful, one to the God, to myself, for giving me that time to have that moment and have that epiphany in my brain go off. And then two, I try to break it down into micros. All right, well, what can I do to get there? Like I know this is what I need to be doing. How do I get there? How do I make that from here to actions to accomplishment? Um, and ultimately, I try to live it out as best I can every single day.
Yeah, and you know it's evident, man, by what you're doing. Like I said, I could really see the growth in you, at least from afar, in your videos. I can just tell by your body position. I can just tell, man. It's just something. I mean, I'm pretty good at reading people, right? So I can even see it. But um, so I got to ask you this, man. Like you're obviously in the military. You've been in for 15 years. I can only imagine the amount of soldiers that you've interacted with in your life, right? You've had a
Yeah.
lot. You know, you started as a younger soldier. Now you've been in for a while. You're a non-commissioned officer, and with that comes great responsibility and all those things. So, two things on that. Number one, what do you do each day to prepare your mind to have these same kind of conversations with soldiers? Because they're inevitably going to come up, right? That's part one. And part two is tell me your thoughts on coaching and mentorship and how important it is to you.
Uh, so how do I start each day? That's a tough one. Ultimately, I'm a creature of habit. I'm a creature of routine, and that's something that I got through my time in the military. And I've learned that when I have a routine, I'm gonna have days I'll fall off that routine. I mean, it's gonna happen. I mean, from hurricane responses to late nights at the office preparing for this inspection, this thing, that thing. Not every day is gonna be perfect, but I try to wake up each morning, and as I'm preparing for my runs or preparing for a workout, I just try to take that self reflection that, hey, I slept on it. How was yesterday? How did I show up for my wife? How did I show up for myself, for my job, for my family, for the guys that I mentor, even the people I work with? Did I give the best that I could in those areas? And if I did, great. If I didn't, okay, how can I improve today? How can I be 1% better today in my areas and in my different hats that I wear than I was yesterday? And if I'm just striving, just be a little bit better every day, then usually, which I'm a hard sleeper anyways, but I usually go to sleep feeling pretty fulfilled knowing that I tried. Um, but mentoring, coaching, man, that's something I've always enjoyed doing. I was taught early on that some people they got it. They can do X perfect, but they probably can't teach X. Now some people they can do X okay, but man, they can teach it. And I think with how I am with breaking things down for me to learn it, it makes it easier for me to connect with people and teach them. Um, I, I'm very much the type of mentor coach that I want to get to know you on that level. How do you learn? Because again, everybody learns different. Some people learn by reading it and they got it. Some people they got to read it over and over and over. Some people they just got to do it. How do I teach those different types of people? And it just comes down from just doing it. For me, I mean, everybody's different. Um, I'm definitely that type of leader that I want you to be comfortable to come to me. Um, one of my one of my teams I had when I was a team leader with my MP company, they always joked that they loved me being their team leader because if it was raining and we had to get out there and PMCS the vehicles, I was out there in the rain with them. Because I mean, at the end of the day, we lead by example, and that's something I want to do for people that are under me, people beside me, people above me, people that see me on Instagram, or people that see me from across the parking lot. I want to lead by example because I've had those good leaders, and I've also had the bad leaders. I mean, I've definitely had some of those mentors and leaders that were just garbage in the nicest way I can say it. But I also try to take something from that person. Hey, I didn't like the way they taught, they mentored or coached, so let's not do that. Let's do this. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The reason I bring it up, there's a lot of people on social media, and there's a lot of people in this world that have coaches and have mentors. So it was kind of just a way to kind of get your mindset, because I too agree that anytime you have a coach in your life, or a mentor in your life, or you have that traditional mentor-mentee relationship, that's going to add a tremendous amount of value to both
Yes.
parties, right? It gives you that connection. It gives you that opportunity to grow alongside somebody. It gives you an opportunity to share experience with that person. And it can really create a lot of good bonds. In the military, it can create lifelong bonds, but even in the civilian world, when you have a mentor mentee relationship or a coach, um, whatever you pour into that relationship is likely what you're going to get out of it, right? Because many times as NCOs and as leaders in any organization, we thrive on being able to give that information, and we also have to be able to receive it. But being in that relationship is really critical. And I'll tell you, one of my other friends, I think, was on here earlier. I don't know if she jumped off or not. Her name is Rachie Ray on Instagram. Check her out too. These aren't just shameless plugs. These are people that I've gotten to know. My buddy
Yeah.
Matthew just joined, right? All these people, because we're all in this community together, man. And one of the phrases that she uses all the time that I absolutely love it, is she has set non-negotiables in
Yes.
her life. Um, each day, right? And that's the phrase she uses. We obviously all know what a non-negotiable is, right? But whatever that looks like for you in your walk in faith, your walk in fitness, tell me a couple of what she calls non-negotiables each day that you are going to get after.
Man, I love that. I've definitely heard that before, and that's something that I've really tried to implement myself. Um, One of my first ones is I'm gonna get at least 6 days. I know it's not necessarily non-negotiable, but I'm the type of person that Sunday that's my rest day. That 100%. I'm going to church with my wife, getting in the word, getting in praise and worship. Most of the time, rest of Sunday, that is my rest day. Like maybe going to see family or doing some stuff around the house with my wife or with a close friend. But that's my rest day. Those other 6 days, though, I'm doing something. I'm doing something to move my body, to move that needle in the right direction because I know myself well enough to know that if I don't do something like that, some type of physical activity, I can feel it. I can feel my body is like, dude, do something. I mean, I know a lot of people that don't. man, I hurt when I start moving and working out. You got to get through that phase. You got to get your body moving. Um, so that's one. Two, I this was something my wife helped me see this because it was something I struggled with, but I'm taking that time the best I can, and I still struggle with it, but spending that disconnect time with her, whether it be Mondays or usually we have a card game we play together where it's just asking each other tough or different or weird questions just to have that connectivity. We'll do games once or twice a week together. We'll like one night it'll be a movie night. Um, just spending that time with her um, helps me, helps our relationship, and just overall helps everything. Um, and then ultimately, just try to be grateful. I mean, I know you said gratitude is one of your big things, and I'm definitely worked on that more this past year. It's just being grateful, man. Like, you got the day, be grateful for it. You're gonna have rough moments. You're gonna have moments where it just doesn't seem worth it. You have a purpose. You have a reason. Find it and spend each day finding it. Um, and then usually the last one is just check up on somebody. Whether it's my dad, I mean, be my wife. Now I text her in the middle of the day, or text a buddy I haven't talked to, or an old soldier I haven't seen in a while. And then my last one would be just do something to better myself mentally. Listen to a podcast, read my Bible, read a book. I'm gonna actually get Tulsi Gabbard's new book. I saw it came out. I've been wanting to read it, so I'm gonna try to read it. Uh, read or do something mentally to challenge myself and be better. So my wife is actually graduating college next week. Whoop.
Nice.
I know she's so ready,
Congratulations.
but college was not for me. I tried to go at the beginning of the year. Was it last year? I think it was last year. I tried to start. I lost it. I was like, no, I'm dying a little bit inside. But now I'm going the certificates route. I'm actually getting ready to do my certified logistics associate technician certificate, and there's some other ones I'm kind of eyeballing and looking at, just to, as I heard when I was younger, putting more tools in my toolbox
Mhm.
and making myself more valuable not only to me but to those around me.
Yeah. Hey, congratulations to your wife. Is Southern Miss?
Yeah,
Is that where she's going? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I've been down. I've been down that neck of woods quite a bit, man. I've been down to your neck of the
Bro,
woods quite a bit.
I'm tired of Camp Shelby. Being a
Yeah.
logistician, that is my primary port of operations.
Yeah. I know, man. But hey, it's all good, man. I love getting down there every chance we get. I made my last trip last year. I've got some other things going on this summer, so I won't be down there. But hey, awesome, man! Congratulations to you and your wife for that great accomplishment. I don't want to. I definitely don't think college is the route for every single
Nope.
person. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff when I was a kid about it, but let me just challenge you this, Jesse. If you don't sell yourself short on a missed opportunity, right? I'm not saying
Yeah,
it's college. I'm not telling you, hey, bro, get back into college right now. It may not be your thing, but keep that iron in the fire, man. Like, don't sell yourself short. Maybe there'll be a time where you can get a certificate and do something else, right? So, I just continue to challenge you out there because you got you're starting to climb in your military career, right? And just keep every opportunity open, man. And have a good mindset. I'm not saying go the college route, but the certificate route is good. Getting some kind of certification, maybe in like personal training or something. Just
yeah.
keep getting after it, man. But I want to ask you this question because I don't think I've ever actually asked anybody this question, at least on here anyway. And if you want to turn it back on me after this, after you get a shot at it, you
Oh,
you let me know, man. It's not a hard question. So let's just say, you listed a lot of the non-negotiables, man, which I applaud, man. It's awesome. I definitely think we should do movement every single day. My buddy Matthew, who's on here, he says, "What if it was simple?" Check him out too. Hey, everybody on here, man. If we're not all connected, man, check out their stuff, man. We're all in community together. I've known Matthew through social media for a while. Awesome guy, but one of his big phrases is like, "How do you get unstuck?" And what if it was simple, right? So check out his stuff. He's got a lot of great stuff. He's a man of faith. He talks a lot about the same stuff we're talking about. But let's just say none of those non-negotiables could happen. You wake up tomorrow, not a single one of those could happen. What's the number one effort you'll do to make sure it happens? Only one. You wake up, you're in a bad mindset, you got no sleep, you got an argument with your wife, truck's broke down, dog's dead, country song backwards or country song forwards, right? Country song forwards. Let's say all that happened and you only had 5 minutes to get after one thing. Out of all the non-negotiables that you just gave yourself, what's your number one?
So I honestly had one as soon as you started, but halfway through it, I was convicted, and it's like, no, this is what you really gonna do. Now I'm just gonna take a second and pray. I'm gonna kind of disconnect for a second and try to start the day right, man. Hey, look, A, B, D, Y, Z, W, X, all that has failed. But first things first, I'm alive, and you've granted me this day, so thank you. And thank you for giving me another opportunity to live and to spend time thanking him. And I definitely struggle with that some days. I'll be the first to admit it, but I can definitely feel now in a situation like that. I try to disconnect. Just, hey man, be thankful you're here. And if there's only one thing that I could do to really get it going, it's just pray for a second, or go into worship for a second. Definitely, I've gotten my palate has widened in some terms of Christian music lately. Definitely found some rock that I'm like, okay, this is actually rock. And I'm a metalhead sometimes, so I definitely like to get something that gets my blood pumping. But then it's still worship and praise. And I've noticed on my hard days, if I start with that, they tend to be a little bit easier. Maybe not completely easy, but just be thankful about something. And ultimately, if there's nothing you can be thankful for, dude, you're awake. You're alive. Not everybody gets that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I'll answer that question too. I became a Christian. I became a Christian in 2015. And if somebody would ask me that question before, I don't know really what I would have said, honestly. It feels like my mind has grown a lot. My body's grown a lot. Of course, I'm getting older, getting grayer. And I don't really know how to answer that, but I can tell you in the last bunch of years, with all this crazy stuff going on in the world, politics, all these other things, all I have done has, and not all, let me take that qualifier out. I have made a lot of effort to get closer in my alignment and faith in my walk with Jesus and all those things, right? And I've talked about it a few times on here. I'm totally open to talk about it, obviously, as much as I can. And I would agree with you. There's been a lot of really big things, and God has been working in a lot of cool ways in my life, especially in the last few years. So if I was to answer that question now, my wife and I just talked about this yesterday with a friend of ours, that prayer. And I too am not the world's greatest at getting in the word. I have been a lot more lately, but if I'm being honest, I still struggle with getting into the word and reading it so much. But I too would say that, because look, we've all had a crazy road to get to where we're at, right? All pain is the same. It's just the details that are different.
Yeah.
And I think for guys like you and I and so many other people in this world, whether they're talking about it on social media or not, any person that walks by faith knows that we owe a lot of love and gratitude and prayers to the good Lord above for giving us oxygen in our lungs, allowing us to have these things that we have in this world, allowing the paths for us to be a little clearer for our walk each day, whether that's in faith, in fitness, in the military, in our relationships, right? So I would agree that staying rooted in your faith is not. It's not for me to agree with your non-negotiable. I'm in agreement that I too would lean to that, because that has served me well. And when I was a young child, um, I never really thought this way. It was not, honestly, man, until 2020, just before the full lockdown. I was deployed when the whole COVID wave started to happen. And I've talked about this in the past. That was the first time in my life since 2015 until then that I had outwardly shown and exhibited and practiced my faith in the Army. I had been, obviously I became a Christian in 2015. 5 years later, I was deployed, and I was walking in faith while deployed. I was going to the chapel service. I was studying the word. I was doing all these things. And it was a big life changing moment for me, kind of in a sad way. And I say this because I'll tell you why. Because I was so hesitant about doing it because I had this misnomer about what Christian men were going to be like. Number one, number two, what were Christian men going to be like in the military? All these things, all these layers that I added to this idea of what I thought Christian soldiers would be like. So when I finally had what I thought was a lot of courage to step out in faith and leave the BDOC, Base Defense Operations Center, and go down the road to the chapel, man, I was walking down that main drag like my head held like 2,000 feet high, thinking, "Look at me! Everybody is going to watch me walk down this street." Walking to practice my faith, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to know the music and I'm going to know the scriptures. And man, it was just me walking down the street. I don't think a single person knew what I was doing. I don't think a single person cared that I was not there for 5 seconds. I don't think a single person cared that I was in the back of that chapel. I had blown it so out of control in my head, but it was such a big step for me. And it was all the realization I needed to be able to be open about my faith as much as we can in the military, right? The military doesn't tell us not to believe and not to be faithful, but just to throw the disclaimer out there, we're also not supposed to proselytize since we're not chaplains. You guys know what I'm saying, right? So walking in faith is definitely important. Hey, I wanna wrap up with a couple things, man. I want to come back to the identity piece. I talked to you about it earlier. Did you find your identity in all these things? Did you wrap yourself up around martial arts and fitness and all these different things and identity? And you said maybe you did and maybe you didn't. If a soldier approaches you tomorrow and asks you how you identify as far as, your rank and all these things, right? What are the things that you think help? I don't want to say make, because we know we're more than what we do. What are some of the key things that are helping to frame your identity as you continue your walk in fitness and faith and family, friends, work that serves, all those things, man? To help me explain that. If you were to explain it to somebody else, what would be some pillars of things that you're all about and passionate about that you want to help use to frame, the next conversation you have with a young soldier or someone down there in Hattiesburg?
So I like that. Real quick, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Overcomer.
Jeremy
Real good movie.
Camp story?
Yeah.
I have.
Not Jeremy Camp. So Overcomer, I can't remember. It's this production group that's made a whole bunch of the same movies, like Facing the Giants, Flywheel, it's like this brothers production company. I'll have to send it to you. But in this movie, this guy was asking one of the main characters, like, "Well, who are you?" And he was like, "Man, I'm a basketball coach," and all this kind of stuff. And he's naming all these things, and it drops down like Christian's number 5. And he's like, "Man, you get all this stripped away, you have no identity." Well, we're not going to get that stripped away. I mean, that's who we are. I mean, we are children of God. That should be our first thing. And that's something that I really try to live through. But if I had to break it down into pillars, I just wanted to plug that because it just reminded me of that. And it's just that aha moment. Number one is just faith. I'm a faith-driven person. With that, I'm also a very loyal and trustworthy. Not to the point that I'm going to let you tell me something that is dangerous to you and not talk about it, but I'm a very trustworthy person. I'm a loving person. Some people say over loving, but that's just me.
No such thing, man.
And disciplined and determined. I think those final two.
Nice, man. Yeah, faith. So yeah, you'll have to send me that movie you're talking about. When you said Overcomer, I think immediately of the Jeremy Camp song Overcome, which is in his movie about his unfortunate late wife. So yeah, please help correct me on that, man, because that's immediately where my mind went. But man, for you to lay those things out like that, I think it's beautiful because I think a lot of times too, especially as men, just because of what it is, this isn't a sexist comment at all. This is just the way that that men are, right? A lot of times, myself included, we get wrapped up in our identity as I identify as, a man, a Christian, a soldier, all these different things. And I think sometimes I can look inwardly, introspectively, and say that I've spent a lot of my life too identifying as things that maybe weren't the best version of me, or maybe they were too good a version of me, right? Like on the podcast I was on with the Present Fathers podcast, I talked about this. I talked about there was definitely times in my life that I did not prioritize those most important relationships in my life as much as I should have. And how that looked for each one of those key people in my life was different, right? Each one of my children, my wife, my mom, my dad, my brother, close friends, etc. Right? Each version of me for that was always different. And while I can't take that back, and there's been a lot of good things that have come from it, from my own vantage point, there's been a lot of things too that looking back, I don't have regrets, but there are things that I definitely wish that I could have done differently in those arenas. And that's just always how we are. We always look back and figure out all these things about what we did. But I also close with this on this point, not closing out completely, but close on this. I just did a video about it, and it's something that's been really weighing on me a lot lately is the idea of rumination, right? Which is excessive worry and obsessing about all these things in our lives that have gone wrong, or things that we're not getting, or tasks that we can't complete. And I'll be the first to tell you, I'm harder on myself than anybody else in my life ever has been.
Big
Way
facts.
harder than my mom, my dad, my wife, any sergeant major, anybody. Like, nobody treats me the way that I treat myself, unfortunately. My good friend Alan says that all the time, man. Like, if you treated somebody else that way, would you accept that of the way you're treating yourself to treat a friend or a loved one? The answer is always absolutely not. But the trick with rumination is that we don't want to obsess, because we're in the growth mindset, that we're always trying to learn and always trying to grow, which means we're always looking backwards and trying to figure out what we did there to get 7 out of 10. Now, next time we need 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. We're never present in the moment. That confirmation and negativity bias keeps us trapped, keeps a stranglehold over us.
Yeah.
Because, like me, I wanted to find ways, things that were negative, so I could fix and grow. Negative, fix and grow. Negative, fix and grow. I was fixated on that cycle of nonsense. And that's when I talked about, gratitude coming in. And for me, that lends itself to have a lot of rumination, looking back and obsessing about all those things. So I just, as a cautionary tale, man, I've got a few years on you. So I will offer this as some friendly, hard work. Look at all these wrinkles and all this gray, man. It's got to be worth something, right? I will pray that you continue your walk and your journey, man, and be there, like you said, for your loved ones. And I can see that you are, man, for your wife, your soldiers, yourself. Just as a cautionary tale, man, we started by saying this, man. You're awesome, dude. You're not just a normal guy. You're a God created person that's needed in this world. Don't spend so much time looking in the past that you A, rob yourself of the present, and B, don't prepare yourself for what God has for you tomorrow, the next day. And that goes for your soldiers and your wife too, man. So I want to close the whole thing by saying this, man. I'm going to give you last chance here to tell us, man. Give us the last bit of goodness out of you here. And I just want to say before that, man, I'll let you close it out. I just want to say how thankful I am. I know when I called you earlier, man, it sounded like you were at dinner with your family. So please thank your wife for taking you away from that lovely dinner you guys had. I appreciate your time, man. Thanks for being in community with me. Thanks for being a non-commissioned officer in the same Corps that I've been so proud of for so many years, man. It's so awesome to connect with you. Hey, I just want you to close us out, man. Give us something here. Tell us what you're doing next. Tell us where they can find you on Instagram. Give us a parting shot, man, so everybody on here can follow you, check out your runs, be in community with you, and we can all get after it together, man.
Man, Grant, thank you again for the time, brother. Again, I know we made a joke a little bit when we talked earlier. Don't come up here and call you mess sergeant. I mean, that's just that force of habit,
Yeah.
lower listed. But man, just thank you for what you've done. I mean, I've seen how much you imparted. I mean, I wear your bracelet right there with my
Yeah, man.
RWB every
Look
day.
at that. I love it.
Look,
Yeah. Those
I got
came from my
everything.
friend Alan.
I mean, I even got the sticker there on my water
That's
bottle.
what's up, man.
So,
Look at that. Representing hard.
also, right now, I'm kind of in a building phase, kind of getting back after being out running for a couple weeks, trying to get a good schedule. This is that busy time, especially for any National Guard reserve. We're getting ready for annual training. I've got a common inspection coming up. So right now, it's just kind of getting that base built. I'm looking at hopefully trying another half, maybe at the end of the year, if the time allows. I'm also working with my church with Royal Rangers, leading that for young men. So trying to help grow that. Uh, Ultimately, I'm just trying to live every day the best I can, be the best husband, be the best soldier, be the best me that I know I can be. And you guys can find me on Instagram, Freckleface Runner. That was actually a funny play on what I used to get picked on as a kid. I used to hate it. I mean, I'm covered head to toe in freckles, and at the end of the day, I can't change it. Might as well embrace it. So,
Yeah, right.
Freckleface Runner 23. That's who I am on Instagram. It's really about the only social media that I have other than my Facebook. And thank you guys for all y'all that jumped on. I appreciate it. Grant, thank you for facilitating this, man. Asking these hard questions that sometimes I don't even realize it until you ask it. Hey, this is what I feel here. And I mean, again, I live every day trying to be a little bit better. And some days it happens, some days it don't, man. But just find something to be thankful for. Find a community. I saw a couple of my buddies on here jump in and out. I know they got busy lives too. But man, Instagram, I have found such a community of people that are doing things from freaking ultra marathons to Ironmans and just the connectivity, connect with people. There are people out there like you that share the same passions, the same goals, the same values, but you have to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid. And that's something I'm thankful that I got through that. Excuse me, because I found some crazily humorous and amazing people. I mean, you being one of them, like that's just the community aspect has been a life changer for me. So, man, thank you guys for coming in. Grant, thank you again, brother. Like I said, I'm gonna keep blowing you up with my reels, keep blowing me up with
Yeah,
yours,
yeah,
and
man.
hopefully we get to do this again one day soon, brother.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, man, I really appreciate it, man. Like I said, you're doing great things, man. I'll tell you, you're a lot further along. You know, there's no such thing as where you're at in your path and comparing it to other people, man. But, you know, take it from me. I've been, the social media game is very new to me, but, you know, I've been around a lot of soldiers for a long, long, long time, man. And I'll tell you, man, you're on the right path. You seem to have the right mindset. And I love that about you, man. And that's again why we crossed paths and why I was so like it was my honor to be on here with you, man, because you are helping me live out my God designed plan when we have these conversations, man. You
Yeah,
are facilitating what fuels me in my heart to be in community and talk to people and just have all these great conversations, right? Sometimes they're hard, sometimes they're not so hard. But I can tell you, like, you have given me so much in this conversation, not only to think about, but to practice and think about how I want to do interactions and all those things, man. So kudos to you, man. Thanks for taking time out of your day. I can't wait to see the next run, man. Please tag me on it. Let me know.
absolutely.
You know, you're going further and further every day, man. So one of these days, maybe you can run all the way up here to Middle Tennessee, man, and I won't have to come down to Shelby to check you out, man.
Look,
So so again, brother, hey, much love, man. I'm so glad we got connected. I hope you have a good rest of your night, man. And thanks again for your time, man. And for all you out there listening, thank you so much for jumping on. My buddy Jesse here. Check out his page, man. He's got a lot of things going on, and hopefully you guys can get connected. And the cool thing is about the community that we're in is like Jesse and I talked about today, and others know, like we're continuing to grow this community and grow the next generation of great leaders. And that starts with you guys out there. It starts with these conversations. And we got to do our best that we can to live our legacy each and every day. The moment is now. The time is now. Tomorrow is not promised. So let's do our best each day to get up, wake up, be grateful, and get after it. So to all you out there, I appreciate you so much. Stay tuned for some cool stuff coming the next couple of days. Jesse, as always, man, we look forward to it. I hope you guys have a great evening.
all right, Grant.
Take care.
You have a good night, brother.
You too.